Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Let's welcome our main speaker, Nancy. I'm Nancy. I'm an alcoholic. I spoke here at Thanksgiving, so if anybody heard me, you can go. It'll probably be the same stuff, although maybe not, and that's really what scares me. I was just given the tape from Thanksgiving. I thought, Jesus, I ought to go out in my car and listen to this, you know, and make sure I say the same thing tonight that I did then. It's a little frightening, but there it is. I wasn't looking forward to this, but then I walked in and I saw Dirty Jack, and I thought, nah, any meeting that, you know, has Jack in it, it's got to be all right. I really don't think there's a way for there to be a bad AA speaker, and I don't say that just to defend myself. I was saying to Erica, who is one of my sponsees, that, and I may have said this at Thanksgiving, but one of the most powerful speakers I ever heard in my life, in my AA life, and I was sober 17 years in December, which, let me say, is continuous sobriety, even weekends and holidays. And I want to say to newcomers, just in passing, that that's 17 years without going out. Going out is not a requirement in this program. It happens, and hopefully, thankfully, people come back, but it's not required. I'm here to tell you that you can actually stay here and not have to go through the hell that we all went through out there and kept asking for more, you know. You can just stay. Alcoholics Anonymous has taught me to stay and not pick up a drink just for this 24 hours. That's all. Just this 24 hours. And sometimes at the beginning it was like for this hour. Just this hour. Maybe I can do this just for an hour. That's kind of the good news, and the bad news is what that means is you also have to feel. And so Alcoholics Anonymous taught me not to pick up a drink or a drug one day, just for one day, and to stand still and feel, because that's why I was running. I was running toward every drink, and I really wasn't a drug person. I mean, I smoked marijuana a couple of times, and I made pot brownies one time, didn't we all? And which, might I simply say, produced about a 4-day high. I mean, it was just amazing. Yeah. Wow. But alcohol was my drug of choice, and I chose it a lot. But I was running from those feelings. I was running from what's right up here. In New York, where I got sober, they have some phrases which I think if come to LA, or maybe they started in LA and got to New York, I don't know, but an alcoholic in his own head is behind enemy lines. That's me. Your head is like a bad neighborhood. You don't want to go in there alone, And that is my head. Let me just get back to what I was saying. One of the most powerful speakers I ever heard was at Perry Street in New York. I don't know if any of you have been to meetings in New York, but Perry Street is a long time old meeting. And there was this speaker that had about, I think, almost a year. And it was a huge meeting, twice as big as this one. And she got up and she said, my name is whatever, Allison, and I'm an alcoholic. And she started to cry. And she cried without stopping for about 3 or 4 minutes. She just cried. And nobody said anything. This makes me cry. You know, because it was the first time that I saw that there was a place that no matter what you felt, you could just be that. You could say that. And people would just wait for you. You know, nobody looked nervous and nobody jumped up to say, we've had a small technical difficulty here, we'll, you know, and grab another speaker like with 45 years or something, you know. She just did that. And then she said, that's all I've got. And she sat down, honest to God. And she was the main speaker. Nobody, nobody blinked. I mean, I'm not kidding. The chairperson got up and said, thank you so much for sharing with us. And she had shared with us from the gut, she really had. Mostly I don't hear a bad AA speaker, but there are times when I hear a speaker that I think, oh, just fucking cry, will you? Just cry for 4 minutes and sit down, Because that's why I come here. I have a choice. I mean, tonight I had a choice. I could have called Branny and said, oh God, I just, I'm paralyzed. I can't come. But it was either come here and be with you guys or be up here. And it's just deadly up there by myself. It's just deadly. In New York, they also say, and they may say it here, I can't remember, alcoholism is a disease that would like to see you dead, but will settle for seeing you drunk. And I'll tell you how I know that's true, and I hope to God I didn't tell you this story at Thanksgiving. Stop me if I did. Just say, we've heard it, sit down. I was in Pittsburgh, and I was on a project with, actually my child and I are in the same business, and it was his project that we were in Pittsburgh for, and we were staying in one of these old hotels downtown that had been renovated, and it was this beautiful old building. But like the Plaza in New York, one of the cool things about it was it had these huge windows that you could raise. They may have changed it now, but this was like 7 years ago. You could raise them, and there were no bars and no screens, and they were just these huge windows. And we were on the 12th floor. And his schedule had been such that we had to get up at 5, and we didn't get back to the hotel until like midnight. We were way out in East Jesus, some place. And so the consequence of that was I had not been to a meeting in a full 2 weeks. Now I go to 4 or 5 meetings a week at least, and that's been true since the first day of sobriety. I highly recommend that schedule, maybe even 7. But I had not been to a meeting in almost, it was probably 12 or 14 days. That's a long time for me. And so there were these 2 big double beds in the room, and one was next to those windows, and the other one was on the other side of that part of the room, and I was in that one, and my son was in the one in the bed by the windows. In the middle of the night, I wake up, and a lot of you know the middle of the night. You know, there's that disease just waiting for you to wake up, you know. Glad you're awake. I've got a few things to talk to you about. And what it said to me that night was, because I don't know what that disease feeling is like for you, but I can tell you what it's like for me. It's like I grew up in Texas. It's like tumbleweed, dry and rasping in my head, and it just rubs against itself. And it's like a treadmill. There's no way out. There's no logical way out. Once you're in it, there is no way out by yourself. Chuck C. says, you know, we had sprung a trap on ourselves that we can't get out of alone. And that's a problem, because most of us would rather do it alone. I can do it alone. I can do that, you know. So I woke up, and here's what it said. It said, if you just got up out of this bed really quietly and tiptoed around your son's bed, it actually called him my name, if you tiptoed around Will's bed and raised that window, you could jump, and he would never know. And that sounded logical to me. Now, the thought did not occur to me that, well, duh, he wouldn't know now, but how about tomorrow morning, you know, or how about, 30 minutes from now when the cops come to the door? That didn't even occur to me. It was just the logic of how quiet that would be, just getting up and tiptoeing around the bed and raising the window, and I could jump. And I was paralyzed. I was just paralyzed right there, because I knew if I moved, I would do that. I would get up and walk around that bed. That is how dry and chilling and rasping that thought was in my head. And so I just said, please help me, which is the only prayer really that I've ever had to say. Just help me. And so I did move. I reached over for the phone, and I called the desk of the hotel, and I said, it was like, God, 3 a.m, and this poor guy, I'm sure I woke him up. I said, would you can you connect me with Alcoholics Anonymous? And he said, well, you can dial that directly. And I said, no, I can't. And so he did. And there was somebody on the phone. You know, a lot of times there are announcements. Do you have a Kleenex commitment here? Thank you so much. Oh, God, are you sweet? Look at that. It's a hanky. It's so sweet. See, that makes me cry, too. See what we can do for each other? So somebody was on the phone, and you know, sometimes in my meetings, they make an announcement that, you know, central office needs people on the phone, especially midnight to 6 a.m. That woman that was on that phone saved my life, you know, and all I had to do was talk to her she talked to me for 20 minutes, and I could go back to sleep. And then she came and got me the next day, because I arranged with the people that somehow somebody else would take over the guardianship of my child, and she came and got me and took me to a meeting, and I was fine. I mean, it's such a weird disease because it it has the ability to tell me that something is so when actually the picture is just not that way. I mean, I have a friend that says, I wake up with a hangnail and I want to call Dr. Kevorkian, and I can remember, one time I was in the mall at the 3rd Street Promenade Mall, Santa Monica Mall, and I wasn't in the mall, I was in the parking lot, and it was at Christmas, for God's sake. And I was stuck behind these cars, this line of cars. And here's what my mind did. Okay, I'm stuck behind these cars. That means I won't get in there to be able to take this thing back. And then that means that if I can't take that back, then I can't get home to finish this writing that I have to do that I'm going to be paid for. So then I won't be paid for it. And so then I won't be able to pay the rent. And then I'll be out on the street and then I'll die. And I tell that to another alcoholic, and they go, yeah, right, I understand that, It's the strangest chain of things unless you can interrupt it, And I don't have any hope, frankly, I did when I first came in, that somehow would go away, that I would get over it, that I would get well. I have come to accept after 17 years that that's not going to happen. And anybody that has any hope for that, just give it up. Because it's not going to, in my disease, I either have to interrupt it through another alcoholic and my higher power. And a lot of times another alcoholic stands in for my higher power until I can get to a time when I can really deeply, have a conversation, a relationship with my higher power. But that's what has to happen. And that's why in these rooms, Erica was saying, out there, I don't trust my intuition at all. But, that's not entirely true, but I know that there are things out there that are going to really turn me around. In here, there is a kind of sanity made up of insane people, who admit that they are crazy and are willing to take the medicine, who really have finally given up saying, well, maybe it's this, well, maybe it's that, well, maybe if I change this, well, maybe if I just drink beer in a shot, maybe if I just drink white wine, well, no, that didn't work. Well, how about just red wine? Well, how about just vodka? Oh, I know, don't mix the colored liquor with the, white stuff. Hello? I've given it up. It can't happen for me. It can't. I can never do that. And I can never allow my mind to be by itself without either another alcoholic or my higher power in there. I can't do that. I can't go for days without talking to another crazy person. We are what I like to call, how a gaggle of geese or a herd of horses. We are a fit of misfits, and we are all so wacko. And I love that about us. I love that we're all a little nuts. I lately, oh God bless, I have been to several churches, and bless them. And I'm not putting organized religion down. I grew up in the South. I went to church all the time. I have a lot of Bible. My sponsees will tell you that sometimes I say, you know what, that reminds me of the story of the lepers. And here, I have way too much Bible, okay, but I do, and I love that. I think that's just fine. But I cannot go to organized religion, and here's the reason. Because my experience of it is, and maybe somebody will come up to the podium and tell me that's not theirs, and that's fine. My experience is that somebody's standing up telling you what what your experience needs to be, instead of saying, this is what works for me. This is what works for me. And what works for this alcoholic is talking to another alcoholic every day and talking to my higher power every day. That's what works. And not picking up, Jesus Christ. Jack, you want to talk a while? And not picking up a drink one day at a time, or a drug. Okay. I don't tell you what it was like because, oh God, I'm so sick of my own story. I mean, I didn't really drink alcoholically until way late. You know, I didn't start at 12 or 13. I started drinking alcoholically really about 22. I was just a depressed, angry, you know, leave me the fuck alone kind of person up until then. And why I didn't discover something that would make that go away, I don't know. But I really wallowed in it, man, and I punished everybody. And then I gave that 22 years, and then I started anesthetizing that. I didn't want to feel that anymore, so I started, and man, it worked for me. It just worked, you know. I could not be me. I could pretend to be somebody else. Erica and I were talking tonight about how we have both worked out our speeches to be done, our dialogue with David Letterman. I've never been on David Letterman. I will never be on David Letterman. Yet I've worked out the conversation between me and David Letterman, you know. And so, it was always that I was trying to be somebody other than me. I didn't like the package that God had given me. I just didn't like it. I didn't want to be that person. And I was really angry that I was who I was. Lately, my mother died 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, I can't remember now. And there was not much love lost from my perspective, though I really showed up for her the last 3 or 4 years of her life. But I never felt a bond with my mother. And I, for many years, thought it was her fault. Then I realized that I had a part, okay, and, whatever. But it gets deeper, and it gets uglier, and then it gets more, you get more freedom that way. But in the last year or so, a lot of things have fallen away. I divorced out of a 19-year marriage, and this was a good thing. But it's left me with a lot of time alone. I have a 16-year-old. In case the tape needs to know what that look is about, it's about a 16-year-old. But anyway, I have had a lot of time to really process a lot. And my mother, I realize now that I took on, my father treated my mother really badly. And I took on his behavior in the most subtle kinds of ways so that I almost couldn't even be accused of belittling her. But I did it her whole life. And even the last 3 or 4 years when I was really showing up, I belittled this woman who, her worst sin was that she was controlling. But and I've had to do a lot of writing about this in the last few weeks, and it's horrible to look at, because she's gone, and I've found myself saying to my higher power, tell her I am so sorry. I mean, you understand, I took on this behavior when I was, about 2.5 feet high. And I'm not blaming myself, because it was a war zone that was going on in that house. But I did that. This program has, it has faced me with a lot of hard things. I've had to look at a lot of hard things that had to do with me and what I chose to do. Nothing else. And there's a freedom in that accepting that and admitting that and saying, what can I do now to make amends? Well, I can't make amends to my mother, actually, although I can write her a letter. But I have to make some kind of living amends. And I'm not quite sure. My sponsor and I are in conversation about that. So that's been hard, and it's also been very good. The other thing that I want to say, because I really want to make a pitch for surrender, and the reason I want to pitch it is that actually I think that's all there is. I don't think there is anything else in this program. So you can spend a lot of years fighting that, but you're just wasting your time. Because if you're going to be sober, that's it. That's the name of the game, is give up. Just give up. Give up all your old ideas if you can find them. And that's the great thing about staying sober a long time. You see more and more and more of what the old ideas are that you have been carrying around and operating on and didn't even know it. And you can get rid of them. That's the damn thing. You actually can get rid of them. Now, I mean, you can't, I can't, but what I can do is to work the 6th and 7th step on them and say to my higher power, I am entirely ready to give this up. This doesn't serve me anymore at all. And I humbly ask you to remove this. And my experience has been, a lot of times that just happens. That's just lifted. Now, you'll hear people say, well, no, that you just for that day or whatever. Okay. But there are some old ideas that have driven me, that when I realized them, I actually went, I don't want that anymore. I am honestly ready to give this up. And they've been removed from me. That's just my experience. But the reason that I push surrender or pitch it is that I've actually had a really amazing experience. One particularly amazing, and lately I'm grappling with a second. And then little tiny surrenders all along the way. But I may have talked about this at Thanksgiving, so I'm not going to labor it. But I have a son who is 32. He's one of the reasons I got sober. I saw him looking at me one night when I was on the couch going, But I saw his eyes. I saw the look on his face. It was actually a moment of clarity. And his face said, you are the most disgusting thing I have ever seen. And I didn't forget that. Alcohol could make me forget a whole lot of stuff, but I never, and to this day, I remember the look on his face. And so he grew up with an alcoholic mother. I got sober when he was 15. And he got into some trouble when I was a year sober, trouble with the police. And I thought it was the end of the world. There was a chance that he could go to Rikers Island. It was his first offense, but there was actually a chance that he could. Even people in the program who had been to jail said to me, nah, it's his first offense, he'll never go to jail, unless he gets a cranky judge. And then he might. And so we went through a period of 8 months showing up at court, and the trial would be, it would be put off, the case would be put off because they didn't have time, and then every month. And so 8 months we showed up. And what happened in those 8 months is this. I came into Alcoholics Anonymous with that problem, screaming and crying and saying, this is my child. I love this boy so much. I'll die. I'll die. And I think one time I even said, you know, I'll drink over this. I would drink over this. I can't handle this. I can't. And people would listen to me and you know, talk to me afterwards. The great thing about AA is there are a lot of people that have had jail time. Thank you, God. And they would talk to me, you know. And one guy said, you know, if he has to go to jail, my advice is get on his knees all the time. Just be on your knees by your bunk and people will leave you alone. I thought that was a great piece of advice. It was, you know, like you're praying. Just pretend you're praying and then, you know. And anyway, my sponsor finally said to me, you have got to give this child up. He has a higher power and it is not you. And you have to give him up. And one of those stories from the Bible comes to mind always when I think about that, because there's a story about Abraham taking Isaac up to sacrifice him. I never quite got why God was asking for that, but never mind. He did it. He took him up there, and that was his son, and he raised the knife, and God said, no, never mind, you don't have to do that. Don't ask why. I really don't understand that story that way, but what I did understand was that's what I felt like I was doing, you know. But I did it. I prayed about it. I prayed hard about it. I talked with God a lot about it, because the scary thing was I knew that God had taken care of me and let me get sober, but how did I know who Charlie's higher power is? How do I know he's going to take care of him? Meaning, Reed, keep him out of jail, you know. But when I gave him up, finally, I was actually able to show up for him in a way that I couldn't do when I was going, you know. I could just show up as his mother and be there for him. And the other thing was, and this is what I had to say, if it's your will that he go to jail, so be it. I'll show up for him there. And it's the hardest single thing I ever had to do next to stopping drinking. It's the hardest thing. But the second it happened, I am not kidding you, things absolutely began to fall into place. If I sat here and listed everything, it was like nothing, and I have a great imagination. I couldn't have imagined all the positive things that came out of that. It changed his life, you know. I remember when they were going to take him in front of a grand jury. And I was able to say to him, your only job is to tell the truth. That's your only job. And I could say that before I had this surrender, I would want to say, just lie, go, fuck, just do this, do that, you know. And I was able to say, just tell the truth. And so he got off with a year's probation and a lot of community service. And that child today is a Manhattan district attorney. Wow. And I absolutely attribute that to the fact that I didn't get in there and try to make something happen, you know, try to change what everybody thought, or, you know, tell just a tiny lie to make it look like that, you know. I just took my hands off. Now, I have a 16-year-old, and I'm kind of going through, not anything like that at all, but I'm having to let go of this child. And the great thing is that when I finally contemplate that maybe I can take my hands off, things fall right in front of me, you know. Here's the family therapist to see. Here's the, you know, here's just a lot of stuff about him. Here's the way you will want to behave. And this therapist said to me, your only job as a parent now is to create a space of unconditional love for this child, because he's gonna make mistakes, but he wants his freedom. And I've had a lot of people say, whoa, he's just 16, you know. This child has had, because of the profession he's in, he's had a lot of world experience. He's fairly mature in a lot of ways. So my ex-husband and I you know, we're there for him. We're just there for him. And if something makes us uncomfortable, then we say, or I say, you know what, we got to work that out. You know, we have to come to some kind of compromise about that because I'm uncomfortable with it. And he says, okay. Whereas before I was trying to push him and shove him and it was just not working. I just want to say that I'm more than grateful for my life. I'm grateful that this program and the people in it have given me a way to actually come out of what was and could be any day hell, which is what my mind tells me. You know, it can create a hell for me just like that if I don't use the tools of this program. And so I've learned to do it like a diabetic takes insulin. And let me tell you this, I have just been diagnosed as a diabetic. My numbers are just over the line, and they believe that I can control it with diet. Now, I have never paid attention to food that much. I don't give a shit. Sometimes I forget to eat until like 3 in the afternoon, and I go, fuck, I don't think I've eaten yet. I better eat. I have to eat 3 meals a day and a snack in between. And it has taught me an entirely new way of taking care of myself and caring for myself. And so what looked like at first when this nutritionist was telling me all this stuff, I was just going, I can't do that. I can't pay that much. It has taught me a new love for myself. And that is just a gift. That is a gift of this program. This program has taught me, do what's in front of you. Do what's in front of you. Don't look all around, you know, what's in front of you. And this diabetes was right here. And I'm doing it. And I feel great. So I am so happy to be here. I'm so grateful to Branny for asking me, even though I just spoke. Thank you for hearing me.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, Oop. Out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.